Senator Hagerty, if you're there, speak up. Happy New Year.
I'm
you
here.
are. Now,
I'm here, Larry.
Bill, you're super duper for waiting. It's a pain in the neck. All I can say is think how I feel. I sat through 2 hours of that. So anyway, one thing seemed pretty clear to me. There's no big change in policy. He's going to really double his bet or triple his bet. You know, continue for the $5 trillion spending bill, the the nationalized election bill, the filibuster, and so forth. I want to ask you about some Ukraine ambiguity, but it doesn't sound like anything's changed so far. Is that your read, or am I overreacting?
No, it's certainly my read, and he complains that he's the one driving everything, and what are Republicans for? I can tell you what we're for. You're part of helping this happen, Larry. We're for energy security. We're for economic security for this nation. We're for border security. We're for our national security. We're for supporting our allies and pushing back on our adversaries. And everything that he's done has been the opposite of that. If you think about what President Trump accomplished, you were there for it. I mean, we brought our economy to the fore. He talked about bringing jobs back. He hasn't brought jobs back to the level that they were before the pandemic. He's taking credit for things that he really shouldn't. The inflation rate is at a level that we haven't seen in 40 years. It's taxing every American. He's living in some sort of different reality, some sort of alternate reality when he says that Build Back Better would reduce inflation, not cost a penny, when we know that $5 trillion more fuel onto this inflationary fire would be disastrous. I mean, it really was shocking to see him take this approach tonight.
We have also Senator Ron Johnson, who's been a great sport and hang in there with us. You know, Senator Johnson, to what Senator Hagerty just said, it astonishes me that the president continues to argue that the cause of the inflation is COVID. It has nothing to do with either his spending bill, his $2 trillion spending bill of last winter, or his $5 trillion bill that he continues to push. He was very strong about continuing to push for this spending bill, something like cutting it up into pieces, but he still wants it. He just will not deal with the reality that excessive government spending breeds inflation, and the public is furious about it.
No, listen, he's living in a fantasy world. He really is. But here on planet Earth, when you spend trillions of dollars we don't have, when you pay people not to work and reduce the supply of goods, that's going to cause inflation. Now, I was amazed at the notes I had. I didn't get to watch the entire press conference, but he said that he outperformed expectations. Again, I'm not sure what planet he's inhabiting, but again, here on planet Earth, what he has governed is a huge radical leftist. He's not the moderate that the press said he was going to be. He's a radical leftist. He's opened up the borders. He's caused the inflation. We have catch and release now at the border, but also in our criminal justice system, the embarrassing and dangerous surrender in Afghanistan. I mean, it is a record of failure. It's almost surprising that his approval ratings are as high as they are.
Can I go back to Senator Hagerty? He is so ambiguous. He referred to this a couple of times in the Ukraine business. He said there might be a minor incursion by Russia into Ukraine, and that would be okay. And he was trying to distinguish between a major incursion. As our former ambassador to Japan and national security guy, I don't understand a minor incursion.
I was very disturbed by this, Larry. I mean, it's as if he's laying the pretext for another failure. And as Senator Johnson said, we've seen massive failures overseas. Afghanistan was a complete debacle. You know, it's emboldened our adversaries. Vladimir Putin's been watching this. And if you think about the way Biden has negotiated with Putin since he's come into office, you know, Nord Stream 2, not imposing mandatory waivers. You think about what happened with the START treaty, where President Trump had held back to get negotiating leverage. Biden gave him a 5-year extension and got nothing for it, begging us not to attack, begging us not to be attacked, at least 16 industries that he was willing to protect. When he talked with Vladimir Putin about these are the industries we don't want you to cyber attack. I mean, we've been dealing with him from a position of weakness. Now that these troops have piled up on the border, I think we have every reason to be very concerned, and I hate to hear President Biden again laying the pretext for some sort of failure at that border. We need to be standing strong right now. We need to stand strong with our allies.
Yeah, boy, that's exactly right. Senator Johnson, he's going to stay with the $550 billion for the so-called Green New Deal. He acknowledges that oil prices are going to be high. Oil prices are now about $90 because of various world tensions. It looks like high energy costs are here to stay.
Yeah, again, these things didn't just happen. These are the direct result of Biden's policies of Democrat governance. American people have to wake up to this. We've talked about this. Inflation is the tax. It's the Democrat tax on the middle class. And I agree with President Reagan. You achieve peace through strength. He's been exhibiting weakness throughout the world. It's not an accident that Putin is going to take advantage, or might be taking advantage of the opportunity right now.
Well, I hate to say it, but I can't blame him. Gentlemen, I'm going to have to leave it there. You're very kind to have come on for a few moments. I wish we had much, much more time. Happy New Year to both of you. We're going to switch over in just a few seconds to my pal, Elizabeth McDonald, for the evening edit. Liz McDonald, you take the ball and run with it.